guys, I thought today I would do some plying, show you what my technique is for doing this. So I've got my lazy Kate or lazy Susan, I still don't know which it is. And then I've got my spinning wheel with my plying spindle on it. It's longer, it's an 18-inch dowel rod, so we've got a good portion out here to spin the fiber on that I spun on the normal spindle. And so you're going counterclockwise to twist these two plies together. Most of you will know already. After I wind on like this, then I hold it here, let this amount of yarn charge while I slide my hand back along the two plies here. So what happens then is that stabilizes my draw. I'll show it to you in full speed. So I wind on, grab it here, pull back. So if there are any kinks or anything in my plies, I can pull them out with my right hand that I'm dragging back without doing anything to the yarn in front of my left hand. And that's also preventing the twist from traveling back and making matters worse. I like plying okay. I don't enjoy it as much as spinning, but once I learned to use this hand to pinch off the twist during the plying process, it did become a lot more enjoyable because I didn't like the twist traveling back at the same rate that my hand traveled back with the yarn, and this takes care of that for sure. It also goes pretty quick. In a future episode, I will probably talk a little more about my lazy Kate, but it's just a makeshift lazy Kate, really. I've never came up with a great way to make one that I like. I really like this lazy Kate, but it's not the most simple to construct, and it's not terribly easy to load quills full of yarn into. So that's what I need to work on. I really kind of liked the audio in the last show, so that's what I'm probably going to do all the time now, is just use these Apple headphones to record the audio on a separate device while recording the video on my iPhone on a tripod. This is a different view this week. I don't have an aversion to showing my face on the camera, but the important part is the wheel and the yarn, so I don't worry as much about getting myself in the frame. Another thing is, because I am recording audio separate, it doesn't match up that well. If I match it up at the beginning of the recording, it's not matched up great at the end of the recording. I will play with that some and see what we can do. But I think it's a little distracting to see me talking and my lips not moving in unison. So if my mouth is not in the shot, all the better. It's also hot out here, so you guys don't really need to watch me sweat. If you want to see that, I'll shoot a separate video and post it. You can just, like, watch water beat up on my forehead and run down my face. So what I'll do here is, when I get to the bottom of the thinnest quill, so in other words, whichever one I run out of first, I'll take the one that still has yarn left on it, and I will do an Andean ply around my hand, around my right hand actually, and then I will just ply it back on itself, whatever the remaining yarn is on the fuller quill. Oh, speaking of fuller quill, insulative is a word, it turns out, and it means to insulate or have the property of insulation. So yeah, I was on with that one. That was an actual word. extra points to anybody out there that already looked it up and knew before I came back on to announce it. It's a pretty nice day. It's a little warm out here. It's always nice back here in the shade, but for filming, I would rather it be even cooler. We're not going to have to worry about that, though. Fall is coming, and you will be able to sit out and spin for as long as you want, wearing cowls and sweaters. Probably not mittens. I don't know that you need to be spinning if you have to wear mittens to sit outside. I'm going to shift my feet. This shouldn't take as long to do this week, so I'm definitely going to probably splice it in with other video I want you to see, maybe video of the farm, maybe I will do the maintenance on the wheel and run it in, but last week was a one-shot. It was one piece of film recorded all together, and this week will be segments. And going forward, I'll probably work more in segments too, since it should be easier. I just want to stay away from giving myself a lot of editing. This will be a nice companion yarn to the 170 yard skein that I did this past week out of Jacob's, because this came off the same Jacob. So Jacob have black spots or white spots, but they're black and white sheep. And I had about 2 ounces of the dark wool that I spun up in a skein that was 170 yards of a fingering weight, not a fingering weight, a sport weight. And then I have this 2 ounces of white. I assume it's around 2 ounces, and it will also be around that sport weight too, because I spun them both the same. The white does seem to have a little shorter staple length, and that will happen on sheep if they have different colors. A lot of times one color, like the brown, is longer than the white, which is pretty funny, but it happens. And the brown was already kind of a little short, but the white seems to be even shorter still. I like it though. It is a pretty color and a nice wool, and they will make a good project together. Now when I'm doing plying like this, I actually, if I have to take a break in the middle, I'll pull the quill off of the wheel instead of leaving that weight on the spindle. For storage, I'll actually pull the quill off and put it on the lazy Kate or whatnot, because with the spindle being wood, it can warp over time if you have things hanging on it or just weight in general. They're easy enough to replace, but you don't want to replace them just because you had a full quill of yarn sitting on it for weeks. I've had a lot of people ask if the dough deck will ply yarn. I don't really understand that question. I don't know of any wheels that'll only turn in one direction, but maybe e-spinners only turn in one direction, so you're able to spin plies, but then unless it has a way to switch direction, you're not able to ply them together. Maybe one of you will have to tell me that. I did start a user group for this podcast. As a matter of fact, there's me and 2 other members in it right now, and the podcast is not up, and there are no posts in there to discuss because they don't know what the show is. The show won't be up for weeks, I'm sure, but by the time you're hearing this, you can head on over there and talk to each other. I do not think I will be filming on the bicycle bridge going over the river because I wasn't thinking about the fact that the camera is on a tripod and the vibrations from cars going across the bridge actually would make that problematic. It would give a really low rate earthquake effect where I could pretend like the ground was shaking even though it's only the camera shaking. I broke my ball winder. So even after I pull this out on the nitty knotty and see how many yards it is and skein it up, I will not be able to put it in a cake because I don't have a ball winder to do that with. I will have to put it in a center feed ball by hand, which I don't mind doing. I used to do that all the time. I never wanted a ball winder, except I have realized that ball winders are a little more uniform for other people. Okay, so I had a ply break just because as it gets lower on the quill, that quill has to spin at a greater rate because of the way it's coming off. And so it's spinning faster along with the fact that the wool is kind of melding together at this point. Made it stop and I pulled my yarn apart. Once I free it, I will go ahead and splice this back in. I just overlay these 2 tips, add a lot of twist to that section, and voila, my yarn is complete again. I'm never even able to find those after the fact. If I do that maybe twice in a skein of yarn, when I go back and I'm knitting it, I never do see those ends, and I'm not really sure why. It doesn't take a lot to splice it back together, and it's no kind of technical marvel or feat, but it really does a good job of mixing in. We are almost done with that one quill. For those of you who liked the color commentary last week, it's probably a little light on that this week, which I hope you don't mind, but there will be times when I'm feeling a little more free with the camera, and there will be times when I'm hot and sweaty and do not want to fool around a lot. Alright, so what I got now is this quill isn't done yet. And what I need to do is take the tip off of that, blend it into where the tip of this last one came, and then go all the way to the middle of what's left. You do that by doing an Andean ply, or making an Andean bracelet. And so what I do is I bring this loop around, put it on the middle finger, bring this loop around, put it on the middle finger, and I just continue like that till I'm at the end of the ply of yarn. Now you can see this is called a bend, where you take the loop that's made by, I guess, bending over the ply, and then you slide that around your finger. That's a knot term that people use in rope. A bend is, the U in the rope. It's not specifically a spinning or a knitting thing. But I spent a good deal of time sailing, and I was a rock climber through most of my youth, so I might throw in some rope terms from time to time that is not readily accessible to some of you in the audience, and I apologize in advance. So I hope you can see this. It's making this crisscross here, and then it's just holding form as a bracelet back there. But when I pull my finger out, it'll let that whole thing come off one loop at a time, and it'll work me all the way back to the very center of that long cord. And we're getting close to the end. Alright, now here we go. We're going to be pulling it all right off of there. And then you want to pull your finger out and just let it sit as a bracelet. You can take this end and meld it in. Again, we just overlap those two. Add a substantial amount of twist, and we're good to go. Now this will actually pull off in a pretty uniform fashion. The only thing is it's a little more tricky bringing them off in parallel. I don't know what to say, parallel tension. So you got to be careful with your second hand. I have to go a little slower with my Indian bracelet plying than I do with my plying off of a Lazy Kate, so that I can make sure that it's coming even and that I'm not breaking it. Oh, I just broke it. That was perfect. That was perfect. I actually was hoping for quite a few breaks in this so that I could show that I don't have problems with it, that I don't think you should worry about it or let it bring you down, because it really, at this point, is not going to affect your fiber. So you shouldn't get discouraged when you suffer breaks. You shouldn't fear breaks, because, if you do fear breaks, you have to worry even that when you're making the plies, if it gets a little thin, even though artistically you might like the thick and the thin, you might be scared that later on with plying you're going to break that, and you might want to watch it a little more than you would like to, obsess over it. And so my theory is, if you can wind it, if it's thick enough to wind it on, leave it. If it breaks in plying, splice it, because they splice easy. And the yarn is perfect even when they do, and I love it. You can slide it back up your wrist if that starts becoming an issue for you. I don't really have a problem with it most of the time, but this entire bracelet will actually just come apart if you grab it from here and pull this way. So you don't want to give it too much chance to slip off your wrist, because it's kind of a tenuous arrangement that you have with all the fiber sitting there, kind of coalesced. I sure like it though, and you never have to worry about having one quill that has more fiber than the other, because you always have this as an alternative. I do like to have it pretty close though, because I don't like spinning off an Andean bracelet for a large chunk of fiber. For one, you've got to remember that the only thing that it's going to be using as ply energy is the twist you had in that single fiber. So I don't like that, like back here at the end, it's pretty much out of twist. So this is the last we're doing right here. This was the end. This was the center of what was left. And like right here, if I let this go, it could kind of untwist, because you're out of twist at that point. And that's what I'm saying. That's one of the weaknesses of an Andean plying. Now, if you keep that in mind while you're spinning the original ply, you don't have a problem, but usually I spin the original ply with, the thought of having one off of each going together and only needing half as much of the twist. But that was it. So now we've got our cob that will go in and put on the nitty knotty, see how long it is, and skein it up. Hey guys, I just wanted to come back now that I've got the yarn skeined up, and I just wanted to show you. This is what I had spun previously. It is from the same sheep, and it was 170 yards at, I think about, I have to check, I think it was like 1.8 ounces, and that came out to just a little more than 1,500 yards a pound. This actually was 2 ounces, and we got 201 yards out of it, so that comes out to like 1,600 yards a pound. So that makes both of them sport weight yarns. They spun up really nice. They're nice and even. I like it. It's a good amount to have on the spindle, but it doesn't really push the bounds of what you can fit on there. This is about what I like to spin between my normal spindle and then ply on the big spindle on average. I did want to show you, even though some of you might be familiar with the dough deck, I think you probably have never seen this plying spindle before. So I wanted to show you these two parts back here are just counterweight, and they just come off, and then the rest of it comes off as a spindle normally would, as long as you remove the upper receiver, which is this part, by freeing up these nuts in the back. Then you can slide out that spindle and slide in another spindle, either a regular spindle or the high-speed spindle, either one. But the spindles go through the upper receiver, and then the upper receiver goes in here. And what I like on the plying spindle is to have a good amount back here that you can put weights on, so that as you get more yarn up here, you can counterbalance it back there so that it all spins freely and evenly. So I hope you enjoyed the video, and yeah, I hope you're getting the same results with your wheel. Thanks a lot.